So I know a lot of you are still waiting on the exact details of when this new stimulus bill is finally going to be done. I mean, let's be honest. When is this thing actually going to be signed, and when are the checks going to go out to make sure that everyone who's listening and everyone who needs this money can budget for the future and not be in uncertainty? Well, things are becoming more and more clear. All of the committees in the House of Representatives who are responsible for drafting this bill, at least their portions of the bill, have all completed that, and they've passed them through for the final bill. The only committee left that needs to pass their portion is the House Budget Committee, and they are slated to do that in the upcoming days. This means we are right on track with our original timeline. There have been no delays as of yet. This is good news for the American people. Now that we know that this bill will in fact be written because the drafts are all being passed, the next area of concern becomes, can it actually make it through both houses of Congress and then be signed by the president in time for the money that we need? The good thing is that in the House of Representatives, the Democrats have a 5-vote margin, and the Democrats are the ones who are constructing this bill. So it makes perfect sense that this thing has about a 100% likelihood of passing through the House of Representatives on the week of February 22nd. In fact, you're probably going to have every single Democrat vote for this, and you may even have a few Republicans as well. Keeping in track with the timeline and letting all of you know when you can expect to see this thing finally be signed and the money be sent off to you, if the House of Representatives passes this the week of February 22nd, and we believe they will, then this bill will go off to the Senate probably right around the week of March 1st. There are technically 3 possible outcomes in the Senate that are based on reality. Well, one of them is definitely not going to happen. The one that's not going to happen is that they just won't vote for the bill, or they're going to vote the bill down. That's not going to happen. That has a less than 1% chance of occurring. So what are the 2 things that are likely to occur? Well, number 1, and this would be the quickest one for the American people, they will simply vote on the bill as written by the House of Representatives, and they will pass it. The only way the Senate will do that is if they know that they will get the 51 majority that they need to pass the reconciliation bill. If they know that certain moderate Democrats won't vote for the bill that the House has written, Democrats like Joe Manchin, who have said that he wants things more targeted, he's a little worried about the $1.9 trillion price tag. If they know he won't vote for it, and therefore they won't get the majority they need, they will rewrite portions of the bill. So this is the second option. If they rewrite portions of the bill, it will probably be minor changes, things to the total amount. Maybe you bring it down by $100 billion. Perhaps they make the stimulus checks a little bit more targeted. Perhaps the $15 minimum wage doesn't make it in. And by the way, that might not even pass the muster of being introduced into a reconciliation bill anyway, because the way this works, and I know this can be confusing, when you put a reconciliation bill into the Congress, it must be something that directly affects the budget. $15 minimum wage increase is a piece of legislation that does not directly impact the budget, and therefore it might not even make it into the bill. And if it doesn't, it actually will make things a lot easier because it will be an issue that they won't have to deal with. So in my mind, I think we have a 50-50 shot when this bill hits the Senate that they're either going to just vote on it and pass it directly, which will be extremely quick, meaning they'll get it done the week of March 1st, and probably Joe Biden will sign it right around March 5th. Now, if the Senate does decide that they need to make minor changes to the House's bill in order to get moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin on board, it'll probably only delay it by 1 week, but that's something that you should know about because any delay is important. But the Democrats will almost certainly vote to pass it in the Senate once they make those changes because they're really keen on remaining united right now, especially amongst a new Democrat president. They don't want to look disjointed like they're arguing with one another only a couple of months into this new presidency. However, once the Senate passes the changes to the bill, then the House must also pass the identical bill, but the House will pass that very quickly, maybe even the same day or the next day. And if they do delay it by a week, they will get it done by the March 14th deadline, because remember, that is a hard deadline. That is when many of the unemployment benefits are going to end. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said this just a couple of days ago. She said, "We hope to have this all done by the end of February." I don't think it's going to be done by the end of February. It'll probably be done by early March. However, she did say this, certainly on the president's desk in time to offset the March 14th deadline where some unemployment benefits would end. So if you want to know the hard date of when this next stimulus bill is finally going to be passed through both houses, on the president's desk and signed, I will tell you right now with a 90% chance of possibility that it will be between March 1st and March 14th. In my opinion, March 5th and March 12th look like the likely dates for it to be signed by the president, depending on whether or not the Senate takes the House's bill as written, or they make slight changes delaying it by a week. That is the best timeline right now that I believe anybody could give you for when this thing is finally going to be signed. So look for it then. Now, if it gets signed by Joe Biden on March 5th or March 12th, then you're expecting the checks to come out in the following weeks after that. Once it's signed, we can give you much more accurate dates on when it's going to be directly deposited. Checks are going to be mailed out. EIP cards are going to be given out. So finally, and once again, how much did you expect? Well, the stimulus checks are in fact $1,400. I know some people are upset with that. They wanted the $2,000 number, but it has now been drafted and passed by the committee at $1,400, with the minimum wage threshold being $75,000 for single filers to get the full $1,400 check, or $150,000 for joint filers. And then those thresholds will be phased out up to $100,000 for single filers and $200,000 for joint filers. This money will be given to all qualifying Americans, taxpayers, and even those who don't pay taxes. So if you're Social Security or SSI or SSDI or a veteran or a survivor or RRB, you will be getting this check. Also, if you are an adult dependent, you will now qualify. It has been drafted and written in by the committee to include adult dependents and all taxpayers who meet the minimum qualifications for those wage limits. But right now, everything looks like it's moving along fairly smoothly. There's been no major hiccups in the road, no major bumps going forward, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen either. The biggest thing that's going to come up is when this reaches the Senate, what exactly are they going to do? I would be very surprised if this thing is not fully passed and signed by March 14th. So hopefully that should give some people out there some relief. I have, though, seen the government do some stranger things than this, giving us these hard deadlines and to help people out and then not meeting them. But I really don't think that's going to happen right now, because if it does, it's going to look exceptionally bad for the Democrat-run House, the Democrat-run Senate, and the Democrat presidency. They're not really going to have anyone else to blame. Yeah, they can blame the Republicans for some things, but if they can't be united enough to get this through by that hard deadline, which they've been saying, it's not, the American people are not going to look well upon them saying, well, it was the Republicans' fault. Well, you control every part of the government at this point, and you created a reconciliation bill, which you only needed Democrats to pass it through. So you should have figured out a way to do it. So I don't think the Democrats are going to allow this to pass the March 14th deadline, because I don't think blaming the Republicans is going to work. It's not going to pass the muster of convincing the American people that it was someone else's fault. So I think they're going to get it done, and everything is pointing to it. So I'm just trying to give you as much confidence as I can that this is actually going to happen, and you are going to get another stimulus check. The unemployment boost is going to continue. There's going to be more help for PPP. There's going to be more help for those people who are renters and landlords, and for states and local governments, for vaccine distribution, hospitals, for schools. And sometimes people do always ask in the comment area, well, what else are they packing into this thing? Are they packing into other? They always pack in other pork. They always send off money off seas. They always distribute money to things that don't really need to be distributed to. That's what our government does. This is why a lot of people don't like it. We will find out exactly all of those different pieces as it comes in, but just expect that that's what happens. Although a majority of this should be going directly back into the U.S. economy, which is a good thing. As always, thank you for coming along with me. I will catch you all next time.